This is Jordan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills, and you are now listening to Cover One Buffalo Podcast. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, and joined by my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn, in full Christmas fashion. How we doing?
It's crunch time, baby. It is as Christmas as it's going to get. We were just talking offline here, and I was scrambling, wrapping presents, lost track of time. I was like, shoot, I got to talk about the Bills. Like, it's not Christmas right now. I need to pause Christmas.
There'll be plenty of time. I think both of us are going to go into full wrapping mode again right after this show. But it's a ton of fun, and this is an interesting time. So we're brought to you tonight by our presenting sponsor, Uncle Jumbo's. Appreciate them very much, and our sponsors, West Her. Another quick shout out for our friends over at T-Shirt University. They've been doing a great giveaway, T-Shirt University gift cards. We actually had another one tonight. Wanted to mention a winner right off the top. Our friend Molds 0080 gave us a great review on iTunes. Going to reach out to them, get a contact, and get them this T-Shirt University gift card. If you give us a review, rating, review, find us wherever you're listening to us. We're going to be giving these out through the rest of the season. But
great screening, Molds.
Yeah, it was great.
Gamer.
Yeah, Molds 0080. I loved it. I was. It wasn't an accident that I picked it. So tonight we're here to talk about a matchup with the New England Patriots, and
Never seen them before.
Yeah, never heard of her. Not sure. No, it's something that we've had a lot of practice going into late game seasons with the New England Patriots, where the game matters an awful lot more for one team than the other. I don't know. It's been an awful lot of time since it's been this direction. So tonight, to bring on our special guest and expert in the field, Mark Schofield. Mark from Touchdown Wire, Pat's Pulpit, quarterback camp, so many different areas.
Hardest working guy in the business.
How we doing, Mark?
I am doing well. It's a pleasure to be with you fine gentlemen this evening. And I felt like I needed, since it is the holiday season, to bring some gifts. Now, we can't be there together, so the least I could do is this.
I've been playing it all week.
Yeah, there you go. It's for you guys. Just, I come bearing gifts.
We appreciate it. It's funny that people online at Pete, we appreciate your gracious gift and generosity very much. It's something people talk about, act like you've been there before. We haven't. I don't know how. I'm not aware of how to act.
I was 6.
I'm
going to act like I was when I was 6.
So exactly, Aaron, act like a 6-year-old.
Exactly.
He's got that down. Notches.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing all week.
So Mark, obviously, going through this, it's teams in very different trajectories, different directions. The Bills are ramping up for their first exciting run in something that you've obviously experienced that direction. The Patriots are in a position that the Bills are very, very familiar with. For a while they're doing the crazy playoff predictor simulators, trying to find some weird path. Is there a way that we get to the 7th seed? And right. Now pivoting to, what are we looking for to do in these last couple games? And I've heard the debate of, do we get some legitimate run for Stidham, or do we continue down the path with Cam? And, obviously a little more obvious option with Gilmore, but, other veteran players that have been kind of scrapping it together. And the NFL is 100% injury rate league. Nobody's healthy at this point. So give us, just an overall sentiment of where your mind is at with the team and what you think their process is going to be these last couple weeks.
And don't ask Belichick. He'll tell you when he's ready.
He'll tell us when he's ready to make a switch of quarterback, as he informed us all today. I think, Greg, where I'm at is where I hope the team is at and the organization is at, which is, the roster evaluation process for 2021 begins right now. And I think that doesn't mean that you have to start Jarrett Stidham Monday night. They might play him. It might be a, second quarter, second half kind of thing. But I do think that Jarrett Stidham has to at least get us started week 17 and be given an opportunity to be treated like the starter for an entire week, to go through that process, because now you have the opportunity to take a step back and evaluate every position from the whole 53-man roster, starters, backups, all that stuff. I think week 17, they're really going to clear out the locker room in terms of started lots of young guys that we play in the Jets. They might want to make sure that Trevor Lawrence ends up in Jacksonville. So, I mean, Bill Belichick might start Brian Hoyer. He might start Jake Doliga. He might call me to get a starter quarterback. I mean, to make sure that Trevor Lawrence ends up in the AFC South. I can limber up the arm a bit. So I do think, that this is a roster evaluation standpoint because, I know guys like J.C. Jackson and others, like they're going to be competitive, as we saw with Jacksonville, as we saw with the Jets. Like they want to win games, but you also have to be smart about the guys that you have, because if you run a J.C. Jackson out there in week 17, maybe even week 16, and he tears an ACL, well, then what do you do now? Because you might be looking at an offseason where you perhaps move on from Stephon Gilmore, and now you've lost your other CB1 as a result of doing that. So I think they have to be smart going forward. It's obviously unfamiliar territory for them. A week 16 game that doesn't have real meaning for them. It's been 20-plus years since we've had that sort of scenario. And so how they handle it is going to be interesting, but I do think it's roster evaluation time.
I have a question on that note. If we don't see Stidham here for you guys over the next couple of weeks, is that sort of an indictment on him and his future with the New England Patriots? Like if they don't get a look, that's it, right?
I think so. Aaron, a lot of people have sort of, wondered like, well, they see him every day in practice. They see him all the time in practice, so they probably know a lot more already than we think they do. Now, we've also seen that and heard that he does a lot with the scout team, which is interesting. Why are you taking the guy that you think would be your backup and potentially your starter and have him running scout team reps? Like, isn't that what Jake Doliga is for, your practice squad quarterback? That was an interesting little tidbit that came out a couple weeks ago. And I think you're right. If they decide, look, we're just going to run Cam Newton out there for week 16 and 17, that probably tells us more about Jarrett Stidham than anything else. It also might tell us that, look, they're not done with their sort of evaluation process on Cam.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't foreclose the idea of Cam Newton being the week 1 starter for this team next year. I know I say that, and Bills fans are probably gleeful, and Patriots fans are probably like, no. I've had some Patriots fans tell me flat out, I can't do another season, another game of Cam Newton as a starting quarterback, and I get it. But I do think that this was an interesting set of circumstances, a strange offseason. He signed late, COVID, all that stuff. So they might be thinking, look, this guy's a leader. We like the guy. There have been flashes. He's opened up some new things for us as an offense. If we can figure out things around him in a passing game and get that put together, we can work something. So I wouldn't foreclose it, but maybe they still want to get another week or two of film on him to inform their decision going forward.
Well, I think there's also a path where obviously the downside of having the most COVID opt-outs means you also have the most influx of talent coming back. There's actually a mountain of cap space in a nuclear winter kind of free agency period. And the season that Cam had, I don't know that I expect it to be suitors lining up at the door March 1st, banging it down. And then you look at some of the obvious spots that all of a sudden, hey, Jacksonville's going to have an answer. New York's going to have an answer. There's spots that are not going to be in the market per se, where there may be a chance that he's sitting there and it's in his best interest to wait for the draft. And the Pats may do similar to what the Bills did a couple years ago, cobble together picks and move themselves up and trade a player and then trade 2 second-round picks and move, all those different pieces and end up with a top 10 quarterback. Or it may be a 2nd or 3rd round guy, in which case you might want Cam Newton back for another season. And I absolutely think there's a path where not only could you see another season with Cam Newton, it very likely may not be this Cam Newton. I don't know that we never see another good Cam Newton season forever and that he's done.
Well, let's not pretend either, before you answer that, Mark, that the start of the season for the Patriots wasn't good. I think all Bills fans were a little concerned before that COVID outbreak hit and Cam took a break, and then he came back and was never the same after that. Also with lacking weapons, and like Greg alluded to, the amount of weapons on the defensive side that opted out. So I can see these coaches talking themselves into all this context that we're kind of filling in here and saying, hey, if we get everything back, add a couple weapons, this might be good enough to be in contention.
Yeah, I mean, you could see with the guys that are coming back, Hightower and Sean and some others, with the cap space that they have, they've they've had their misses. All teams have misses in free agency, but the Patriots always seem to do enough on sort of that, what I call that secondary free agency market, where they're not going to take all their cap space and throw it at Dak Prescott. They're going to wait and like nibble around the edges of free agency, inside a receiver here and, a cornerback there and things like that, where they could say, look, this could be a really quick retool. And maybe we don't have to get up to get a quarterback. We can see who falls to us. Right now, they'd be picking 15. And so, maybe you get, an edge rusher. Maybe you get a Micah Parsons, the off-ball linebacker from Penn State, because he's somebody that might fall because the value of an off-ball linebacker or somebody like that. And then draft a quarterback on day 2, a Kyle Trask, a Mac Jones, if they happen to fall out of the first round, and say, look, we've got Cam, we've got a day 1 starter. We'll see what the offense looks like. If it doesn't work, we've got somebody waiting in the wings. You could see them having that sort of mindset. And the other thing to think about is you're going to have to get to like 3, 4, or 5 if you want to get a shot at one of these top quarterbacks. As you look at the draft list, we know 1 and 2, Jacksonville, the Jets are probably going quarterback there. Carolina at 4, Atlanta at 5, Dallas at 8. The Dak Prescott situation, you don't know how that plays out. Detroit at 11, San Francisco at 12, Denver at 13. Like, those are all teams that could be in the quarterback game too. And so it might cost you a lot. And I don't know if Bill Belichick's the type that's going to say, we'll trade our entire draft class this year and part of next to go up and get a guy that might be QB 3 or 4 on our board.
Especially when you look at some of those teams you talked about, Stafford, you might have a shot at Matt Ryan in free. Like, there's going to be some names that come out of here that are rare opportunities for quarterbacks at that age that have put up those kind of numbers for the Patriots to say, hey, let's go make another run at this.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fascinating quarterback market between the draft and free agency this year, because obviously the Dak Prescott issue is a big one.
Yeah.
If Jerry Jones lets him out of the building, I've thrown Washington out there because Daniel Snyder would love nothing more than to back up
stick it to him.
Stick it to Jerry Jones. And look, let's be honest, Dan Snyder needs a little bit of good PR right now because that's
an rough 2020.
He had another story drop earlier today.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got like a former attorney general like retained to investigate you, like, you're in some hot water. So I'm sure he'd love to change the conversation, and signing Dak Prescott would be a change the conversation kind of move. But there are going to be some interesting dominoes that fall. I'm very curious about Stafford and Detroit. I'm very curious about Ryan because that's a situation where a new coach and general manager might say, look, we're going to get our guy. If we're picking 5th, Kyle Trask, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, like, you've got some quarterbacks. Yeah.
Well, there's going to be some reclamation projects that still have interest with Wentz and Garoppolo. There's going to be a lot of moving. Jameis Winston. Yeah. There's going to be moving pieces that there are not. All the names we just rattled off, there's not that many starting jobs. So there's going to be some value available. And anytime you have value, you're going to interest Bill Belichick. So
right. And that, Greg, that sort of brings us right back to the Cam Newton thing, which is you list all these names and all these teams. If you're a team that's got cap space, are you going to throw it at Wentz? Are you going to throw it at Garoppolo? Are you going to throw it at what you just saw from Cam Newton? Or if you're going to trade for a quarterback or, sign a quarterback in free agency, what you going to do? Trade for Wentz? Or sign Cam Newton. There's going to be an opportunity there for Cam Newton to sort of say, okay, well, I've looked around. Nothing's really happening for me. Bill Belichick comes back and say, okay, another team-friendly deal. Let's run it back. Let's give it another shot.
Yeah. So speaking of quarterbacks, we'd like to take this opportunity for you to just say nice things to us about Josh Allen. It's, obviously we've talked about it plenty here, and I've been on plenty of other shows that the most fervent Bills fan had faith and belief that we were going to see a step forward and that there was more to come. Anybody who said that they saw this coming is lying, exaggerating, or a little bit of both. And it's just seeing the level that he's been able to reach from a sustainability standpoint, to be able to see the consistency in the, getting his mechanics under control, which has allowed him to manage that accuracy that we talk a lot about it, that people weren't wrong, that it looked inaccurate, but it wasn't an inability to be accurate. It was an inability to be consistent. And he couldn't find repetition in his mechanics to allow him to be consistent and to be accurate repeatedly. It wasn't that he couldn't put the ball on the mark. Well, he fixed the mechanics and now he can put the ball on the mark where it's supposed to go. Someone who spends as much time studying the quarterback position as you are, talk a little bit about, helping fans see how rare this is to see this leap forward this late, and just some of the things you've enjoyed seeing in his progression.
Yeah, and I think, Greg, what's fascinating is you can sense what we're starting to see, which is a full-on reevaluation of the quarterback evaluation process because of Josh Allen. And, you might say, look, this guy's an outlier. I mean, Marcus Mosher today posted Josh Allen's completion percentage dated back to like his JV year in high school. And he was like struggling to get north of like 52%. And he's at like 68 this year. First time he's been over 60 in his entire football career. Yeah. I mean, so you could say, look, he's just an outlier. You don't scout the outlier. You don't look for the outlier. But I think what Allen has shown us about quarterback evaluation and playing this position is that, and I wrote about this for Pat's Pulpit that's going up on Thursday. I talked about a little bit in my show that's going up tomorrow, is that there are 3 lessons to take sort of from the Josh Allen developmental process. One is that athleticism does matter at the quarterback position. And I think that's a prerequisite for quarterbacks in the NFL today for a variety of reasons. The athleticism you see from defensive ends, the fact that now with mobility at the quarterback position, you're playing 11 on 11 in the run game as opposed to 10 on 11 as an offense, which changes the calculus, changes the numbers game. So I think mobility and athleticism matters. I think obviously, look, arm talent matters. It really does. And I'm somebody that used to say, look, we're making too much of it. Like Jeff George could throw the ball through a brick wall. Like it didn't matter for him. I always looked at it was like, just a threshold thing. But what Josh Allen is capable of doing and what he can do as a result of his arm talent is expand what I like to call the sort of decision-making window, right? You think a regular a pass and play, 2.5 seconds snap to throw. That 2.5 seconds is when you're making up your mind. Well, if you do things pre-snap, motion shift, and you can expand that decision-making window into the start of the play before the ball is snapped, maybe you've got like 5-6 seconds to figure it out. Allen could expand it on the back end of that because he has an extra half second, half step, half beat, whatever, to make up his mind because he and Joe Burrow can throw the same route, and Joe Burrow has to let it go a half second sooner. And then we'll still get there at the same time. And that extra half second, Allen can confirm what he's seeing. He can look somebody off. Look at that touchdown of Jay Crumrell from this past weekend. That seam route split in the safeties. He has that extra half second to look off that backside safety who's supposed to push to 3 in that quarter half coverage to rob that route. He can't get there because Allen has that extra half second to look him off.
And that's 2 phenomenal safeties.
Yeah. And then drill that throw in. And so the arm talent stuff does matter. Arm strength does matter. And so he's going to have people take a look at like guys like Justin Herbert, athletic, big arm, and say, look, you can make that work. And the third lesson is obviously patience. Yeah. The Buffalo Bills had patience with him when other teams might have said, look, we're not there yet. We're not sold on this guy. We're going to make a move. We're going to bring in some competition. We're going to sign a veteran like a Nick Foles situation. We're making rumblings about the 5th-year option. The Bills had patience. They had a belief in this kid. They had a belief in their internal developmental process for the quarterback position. Brian Dable obviously deserves a ton of credit. Jordan Palmer, I think, deserves a lot of credit for what he's done with Josh Allen sort of in the offseason in the training program. And Josh Allen himself deserves a ton of credit, because he's a quarterback that many people had QB5 in that class, myself included. I thought that Josh Allen, if he got into the right offense where he could take some shots downfield and play action and spread and use his legs, like it could work. I never saw this. I don't think anybody, I saw somebody in the chat said that they saw it. Well, you were the one, because not many people saw a season like this. And look, he deserves a ton of credit. The Bills deserve a ton of credit. Dable deserves a ton of credit. But I think those are sort of the 3 lessons, guys. Mobility, arm talent does matter, and then patience.
I've got two questions. I want to ask this first one because it kind of touches on that and sort of the evaluation process. I think a big thing baked into Josh's success, you sort of touched on with the patience, but it's kind of the organizational foundation for a young quarterback coming into, because I think a lot of Bills fans want to write off Sam Darnold already as this guy sucks, he's a bust. Even a Josh Rosen, I think there's still probably some talent there if he can ever eventually land into a spot where there's some stability in a good mindset organization that goes behind him. I think Josh Allen came into probably the best situation that we've seen a quarterback come into in a long time in terms of every single person from the cafeteria lady, the janitor is behind him being this franchise's quarterback. How much does that matter of finding the right fit for a quarterback coming in versus the evaluation side?
Yeah, Aaron, it's like 99% of the battle. I mean, for all the yapping I do, for all the film I watch, for all the times I bloviate for hours and hours on end on videos or shows or whatever and make it seem like I know what I'm talking about, none of that matters. What matters is the landing spot, the scheme fit. All those parts are so critical to it. I mean, 2016, right? You see Jared Goff come off the board first, Carson Wentz come off the board second. And everybody's thinking, well, Jared Goff, first overall pick, he's going to be good, right? He goes to Jeff Fisher. That was a situation where he was doomed from the start. Wentz goes to Doug Peterson, Frank Reich, John DeFilippo. Like three guys that two of whom have like played the position in the NFL. John DeFilippo has a quarterback background as well. There's like a three-headed monster to develop this guy. And so I remember talking to people, in and around the league right after that draft, and everybody was telling me Wentz is in a great position because he's got those guys around him. And the landing spot matters so much because, you could have the most talented, quarterback, drop him into a bad situation. You mentioned Josh Rosen, Alan. That was my QB1. And look at what's happened to him. And I think a lot of people had Rosen up there because they looked at the talent, but he ends up in Arizona. They don't really trust him. There's no buy-in around him. Then he gets, they draft Kyler Murray and they move on for him in a single season.
Used to at the higher end of it.
Yeah.
Used to at the higher end. If you swap Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, how different is Kansas City and how different is Houston?
Yeah. I mean, I think – Mahomes was probably going to be good anywhere.
Sure. Just like Watson still is really nice.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think, those guys would probably still be very good, but take Patrick Mahomes or drop him into Adam Gase's lap with the New York Jets. Like he's probably still a good, average NFL quarterback. He's not going to be a bust, but he's not what he is right now. I mean, Mahomes is another example of why scheme fit and landing spot matters, because a lot of coaches would look at how Mahomes plays the position, no look throws, risky throws, his back pedal with drops where you take 30-yard sacks, and coach that out of him and just say, look, you can't do that. This is the NFL kid. You can't make these mistakes. And then you sort of take away what he is. Andy Reid was one of those few coaches, I think, where they were going to say, look, I know what this kid could do. I'll live with the dumb throws, the bad sacks, and the interceptions because I know that 9 times out of 10 he's going to do exactly what we need to win.
And so then my second question is kind of flipping the script with talking about Josh Allen. What do you think? Because we've seen him succeed now this year against man coverage. We've seen him succeed against zone coverage. We've seen him do well against the blitz. Things that he really had a tough time starting in his quarterback development in the league, dealing with all these different looks that NFL coordinators give you. What do you see when you watch him on film is the best way to try to stall him and this Bills offense as a whole unit? So if you're the Patriots defensive coordinator, what are you doing and scheming up to try to contain some of what they've been able to do here really since their bye?
Yeah, Aaron, it's a great question because, if you think back to, say, October, early November, early in the year, a lot of teams were running man coverage against Buffalo, and Allen was picking it apart. And then they started throwing different zone coverage looks with late rotations of the safeties and trying to sort of confuse him. And he had a couple of not great games. And I know Bills fans were starting to wonder, oh, should we be worried about this? And every time I would do a show or come on Buffalo radio, I'd say, look, this is what you want, right? You want defenses to have to think, look, we've got to change things up. We can't just run what we run. We have to game plan for this guy. This is the next step in Allen's development that I was excited to see. And you saw the leap, right? You see him now making some of these reads and throws against zone coverage where he's like drilling in throws. That's why, look, crossing routes are so deadly from Buffalo, because if you run man coverage, Beast is going to run away from you. Davis is going to run away from you. Diggs is going to run away from you. Then you try to make zone coverage looks against these to sort of constrict throwing lanes, and he's got the arm talent to drill those throws in. If he doesn't like the first window, he'll hit the second window, and he's hitting them with anticipation. So I think, look, if you're a defensive coordinator that's facing Josh Allen right now, you have to really mix things up. Like, you just have to really, you got to show them a lot of rotated spun safety looks, like what the Bills do with Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. I love that safety tandem. It's so good. We have to, get him convinced he's seeing 2 high and spin it to 1. Get him convinced he's seeing single high, spin it to 2. Play a lot of match coverages where you're not even sure if it's man or zone, especially if you run it right, where it looks like it's man, but it's really a zone, and they're just passing guys off based on the coverage reads and the coverage rules. And you have to sort of hope for a mistake. I mean, that's the point you're at right now with this Buffalo Bills offense, is you have to hope for a mistake. And that's similar, I'm not saying it's there yet, but it's similar to what you say when you're game planning for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, you have to get a lot of, when you talk about defending teams like Kansas City and now right now with Buffalo, and you start talking about what you need to do against them, it's a lot of that high school clinic where guys like, yeah, we can do this, and we're +1 to the field, we're +1 to the boundary, we're getting pressure with 3, and we're staying too high. And it's like, yeah, sure, great. Yeah, if you could do that, you'll stop anybody. But you can't do that because it's not humanly possible. So we're getting close to that with Buffalo right now, with the way Allen is playing, with that receiver group you've got. With the way that you can still run the ball at times, with what you can do with Josh Allen at times when the run game as well. I know you don't do a ton of it, but it's one of those things you've got a game plan for as a defensive coordinator. And so there are so many ways that this offense can beat you right now. There are so many, difficulties in trying to stop them. And by the way, the defense is starting to play really well too, because Trey White is healthy. You put that together, guys, this looks like to a team, to me, you got to be thinking at least an AFC Championship game spot.
I love it when you talk to me like that, man.
I'm just saying. Look around the AFC, right? What other team really scares you other than Kansas City?
I think there's teams getting hot. Indy, Tennessee have their moments. I think that you can see them. There's been moments for Cleveland, but I think it's disingenuous to say the Bills aren't solidly the second best team in the AFC and arguably the second best team in the NFL. I think that it's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Cleveland and there's a Baker Mayfield question. And I know a debate this week has been Baker Mayfield play action versus non-play action, and I understand that debate. You look at Pittsburgh. I don't think anybody looks at Pittsburgh right now and sees a team that's going to win a playoff game. I mean, I just don't see it. Tennessee is dangerous, but they've got trouble on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, you've seen what teams have done to them. Cleveland a couple of weeks ago. Indianapolis, that defense is good, not great. Phillip Rivers is good, not great. I mean, I think that's a good team. But yeah, I mean, I think you'd be lying to yourself if you said Buffalo didn't have the best shot outside of Kansas City coming out of the AFC.
But before we get into predictions from you, because you do so much with quarterbacks, and while I've got you on here, I think a lot of people on Twitter and even league-wide sleep on Ryan Tannehill and what he's done here in his second act with the Titans. In your kind of evaluations of quarterbacks, is in your time coving, have you ever seen
a second act like this?
Second act like this, man. Like, when you really pull back the numbers, he's having just as good of a season as any quarterback in the NFL.
No, I mean, look, Kurt Warner had a nice run in Arizona.
Yeah.
Carson Palmer, also in Arizona, he had a nice little run there.
Maybe Rich Gannon.
Yeah, I mean, Gannon too. But yeah, I mean, the Tannehill has been fantastic. What's great about Tannehill, the Arthur Smith offense has been perfect for him. Obviously, again, play action, but even on dropbacks, he's clean, he's efficient, he's, making anticipation throws to the second and third levels before windows are even open. He's seeing them come open. What I love about him is his footwork, working through progressions. They'll go RPO type looks or play action type looks where he'll open to the left. That read isn't there. He'll come back, flip his feet, make a throw to the right on time, in rhythm. Just absolutely perfect placement. I see Clifford saying Steve Young's a great second act. That's a great call. That's a really good call. But yeah, Tannehill's been great. the question with the Titans is the defense.
Yeah.
But I think, because Tennessee, they're not going to outscore you, they're not going to win a shootout. So that's what makes me worried about, Tennessee perhaps against Kansas City again. I think that's one of their weaknesses. But you're right, Aaron. Tannehill's been great.
Well, and one final point in some of the things you're bringing up for Josh Allen, I love the way that you express the kind of half second, the extra little time. And I think, what is going to get a whole bunch of other coaches and quarterbacks an opportunity they wouldn't have gotten in the past is going to be because of Josh Allen. There's also going to be some GMs and head coaches who now get fired because of putting faith into a guy they shouldn't, because they think they can create the next Josh Allen.
Right.
So I think you're going to see both of those, which is great. I think that having more time to let that happen, but I love the way that you did that, because I think it speaks to the plays that Daboll gives him, where he schemes up some of those where he doesn't have to be that split second, confused decision making. Then you talk about the extra half second, that having a guy like Cole Beasley against zone, where all of a sudden he's able to give you enough visual separation that you have that extra half second to be, oh, hey, holy crap, Cole's wide open. Or in man, Stephon Diggs can just roast his guy and, besides being NFL open, just be visually open and separate from his guy by 5 yards. Those kind of things all add up. So when you take his arm, the calls from Daboll, the opportunity, heck, we haven't even brought back John Brown. We're about to reintegrate John Brown as just an extra weapon to do there. All those little extra pieces, like you said, turns it into that pick your poison. I love thinking of it in those little fragments of time, and Daboll before the snap, and then Josh's arm, mid snap, and then the separation from the receivers. Just they all add up to, it makes it tough to take it all away.
Yeah. And, I remember being on the air with our good friend Nate Gary. It was 4th of July weekend last summer, not this past summer, the summer before. So before Josh's second season. And I said, look, Cole Beasley is going to be Josh Allen's best friend. I said, look, this guy is always open. I remember studying him back when I was at Bleacher Report doing the NFL 1000 project. I was great at wide receivers. And I said, I constantly had Cole Beasley graded insanely high in route running each week. And, people were like, how can you say this about this guy? I'm like, trust me, the dude is always open, and he is. And he's been such a great part of this passing game. He's meant so much for Josh Allen's development. But then you add, obviously, Stephon Diggs, and such a great downfield threat too. But yeah, it's those opportunities that he has in Daboll's offense. I think of that dagger concept he threw against San Francisco, the one where the deep in cut where he sort of threw it and then like a golfer was ducking to make sure it got over. If you watch that play, it was a zone coverage look, and he threw the zone beater, but you've got the jet motion that turns into a go. You've got the seam route. You've got a single high coverage. Daboll's ability to layer in answers for every possible question that gets put in Josh Allen's lap on a play, that's great play design. That's great offensive work by Brian Daboll. The good play callers are the ones that don't just give you a read. They give you outs based on what you might get that you aren't expecting when the ball is snapped. And I think Daboll's done a great job of that this year.
Well, before we get you out of here, we're going to ask you for a prediction. We're going to put you on the spot. What kind of game do you think we see? Obviously, you're calling for some of that evaluation and pivot, which turns from where the primary focus is. What do you expect in this, little bit more official handover and coronation in the AFC East that's going to happen at Gillette Field on Monday night?
Yeah, it's going to be a blowout, 42-0 New England, obviously. No. I mean, look, divisional games are always closer than you'd expect. I mean, I don't expect it to be a game that people turn off by halftime. But you might want to, see what's on around 10 p.m., 10:30 on Monday night. Maybe, Christmas Vacation is on AMC. It's been on AMC pretty much every night for the past month. I turn it on at 11:35 when I get done working, and it's always the scene where he's getting the bonus and he's walking over to the eggnog. I seem to turn that movie on every single time, every night at that moment. And guys, you can probably see I'm vamping a bit because I don't want to give a prediction because I'm embarrassed because the Patriots aren't playing well right now. But, I do think that it'll be one of those 17-point wins for Buffalo. I mean, I'm probably looking at maybe 27-10, something like that. it would take, a true Festivus miracle for New England to pull off a win in this one. So, yeah, I'm going to say 27-10 Buffalo.
No, we appreciate it, Mark. And obviously, it's for any Bills fans who are, and believe me, enjoy this. The Patriots being eliminated early and having 2 games to go.
You should
enjoy every second of it.
Let's just stop for a second. It's been 25 years.
Yeah.
You should enjoy this. You should be acting obnoxious and getting into Pat's forums and like our friends at Rock Pile Report, like Drew's on Pat's pulpit. I'm trying to figure out his burner name over there because I know he's on there all the time. You should enjoy this because it's been 25 years. It's great to see. If you're strip away your fandom, if you're not a fan of the Bills, this is great to see. It's good to see the Buffalo Bills winning again. You should definitely enjoy this. So yeah, enjoy it. Be obnoxious. Play We Are the Champions. Drink way too much. Make fun of me on Twitter. It's all in good fun and enjoy it. Seriously.
Being from New England, every day this week, I've called 5 or 6 of my friends every single day and just say, "Hey, I'm just calling to check if you guys are still officially eliminated from the playoffs." And they just are like, "You're such an asshole." They're just hanging up on me.
It's been 25 years of us doing it to you guys, so we should get it back and all that more.
No, we appreciate it. For anyone who isn't, make sure you're checking out Mark at Touchdown Wire, through the network there and from Pat's Pulpit. Any other work you want to make sure people are checking out?
Like you said, USA Today's Touchdown Wire, Pat's Pulpit, Big Blue View over at SB Nation, where I cover the Giants, Bleeding Green Nation, where I help cover the Eagles. I do a show with Michael Kist called QB Factory, which is coming to an end because our boy Michael is now an executive at SB Nation, which is wow.
Interesting.
Josh Allen apology for him. Everybody's
they saw the professionalism when he did the apology for him.
He is a professional, wholesome account. It's a professional account. It's wholesome on Saturdays when he's watching Augustus in the morning and taking pictures with his son. But I couldn't be prouder of Mike. But yeah, easiest way though is on Twitter at Mark Schofield. Just expect a lot of Scrubs gifts.
We appreciate it, man. Mark, always a pleasure, and we'll talk
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, guys. Happy holidays. Be well.
Thank you, man. Always awesome to talk to Mark, and I hope Bills fans enjoy that kind of analysis from someone who Mark doesn't blow smoke. He knows the quarterback position as well as anyone in the business, and when he says those kind of things of how hard it is to match up with this Bills team, you could take that to heart. That's somebody who knows what they're talking about, and it's exciting to think about this magic cocktail that they brought together in play calling, talent from Josh, surrounding talent around him. This is going to be a fun run.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, I can't pound the table enough for I saw an article come out today about year-end awards. They polled 22 NFL executives about who was going to be winning the year-end awards. And I think Bills fans are upset that Josh he only got the 2 votes for MVP. And look, I don't think we're going to see a Josh Allen MVP at the end of this season unless something crazy happens over the next 2 weeks, and I just don't see it. But I do see the 2, Sean McDermott getting Coach of the Year. I know there's probably some other guys that can be in that conversation as well. But Brandon Beat being the Executive of the Year, and I think the reason I think so much for those 2 is this type of stability and foundation that they've given Josh Allen. This is not set up to be a one and done success for the Buffalo Bills. And I do think the Patriots are going to come back with a lot more power than we saw this year, and they're going to have to fight them off. And that Miami is going to be good for a few years, and they're going to have to fight them off. But I think when it lines up next year, even with all those things, Buffalo's still going to be the favorite to win this division again next year. And I think it's going to trend that way here for the next few years. I think we're going to lose some guys, and guys are going to come and go, but they have set this up in the right way and proven that they will do everything, whether it's trades, finding guys to put Josh Allen in a position to succeed. And I know I'm super worried about losing Brian Daboll here this offseason, but I have all the faith in Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott to make sure that drop off from Daboll to whoever's next benefits Josh Allen. It's not going to impede on his progress that he made with Brian Daboll. So this is listening to Mark talk and just thinking all that stuff through in my head, this could be a really, not to put the cart in front of the horse, this could be a really fun few years run at peak with all these guys and all this talent that we've got amassed so far.
100%. And I think that there's a couple different things there that I want to touch on. The one, having 5 years after this season where we know contractually we're locked into Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, and soon to be Josh Allen. That is simply a formality. The length of time he's extended for is to be determined. Is it 10 years like Mahomes? Is it 5 years like Watson? Is it 4 years like Wentz or Goff? Whatever. He's going to be extended for an extended amount of time. So having those three means we are going to be stable, successful, and a good team. It doesn't mean everything's going to be injury health and 13-3 in these kind of seasons. It takes a special recipe to end up with this kind of season, but they're going to be good. The other thing, I think some fans are worried about Brian Daboll, and I think that there is a non-zero chance that he doesn't get a job. I think it's very likely that he gets a head coaching job, probably 80-90% that he gets a head coaching job. The one little silver lining to think about is with a lot of these openings that come about, it's hard to find the replacement offensive coordinator because of what the job is. So if you're the offensive coordinator for Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan or some of these other guys, soon to be Brian Daboll, they're really the play caller. Like the offensive coordinator is an ornamental role. It's not real in the sense that you're not calling plays. So you're now going to open up a job to the marketplace to say, hey, do you want to come be the play caller for Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, John Brown, and Gabe Davis? Do you think that could be something that could advance your career and your resume? They're going to get a laundry list of the very best candidates, the guys who are at every single spot who want to go somewhere for 2 or 3 years and get themselves a head coaching job. They are going to get the absolute elite candidates because it's a perfect situation with a stable organization, a defensive-minded head coach who's going to let you run the offensive side of the ball, make all the play calls. You get all the toys to play with and can set yourself up for your next job. So it doesn't mean I'm looking forward to it. I will certainly have preferences of wanting to keep similar language and play calls and system to keep consistency for Allen and the guys. They're going to have those options of really talented guys who can do that.
Yeah, and that's my biggest concern is everybody feels so comfortable where they're at in terms of, like you said, language, this scheme, kind of to Mark's point of, Daboll putting into those plays all the outs and the communication between Josh Allen and Daboll of knowing, what he sees and what's the out, what's the answer to all the tricks. So that's my biggest concern is, who comes in and is their ego in check enough to say, hey, this was what was successful for Josh. I'm not going to bring in something totally different. We're going to work with what was successful for Josh. Another point to Daboll, I think he will get a head coaching job, and kudos to his agent, because if you watch all the national media, every single national media talking head, whenever they're talking about the Bills, is pounding the table for Brian Daboll to be a head coach in this league. So his agent, Brian Daboll deserves to be in this conversation, but there's definitely some agent influence happening within the media. He must have some big power agent. I don't know who his agent is, but kudos to him. He's having a great year.
How the fact that he has to do those kind of half smile answers of no, anytime you focus on the next job, you take away attention from your current job and you're not going to have to worry about those kind of things. That is such a fortunate power play answer to be able to say that, well, I can't be bothered with the obvious myriad of choices I'm about to have in the offseason. So good for him. And, plenty of people in the chat have said here, there's a piece of me that wonders how much of this is Jordan Palmer, how much of this is Ken Dorsey, how much of this is the work ethic and just natural improvement of Josh Allen, how much of this is the talent Brandon Beane brought around him. I think that those are all factors. I think it's naive to think that Brian Daboll has not had a very net positive effect on this and that he's good. I have questions of how amazing of a leader he'll be as a head coach somewhere else. I'm real sure he's a good offensive coordinator. I'm real sure he's a good play caller.
Yeah,
I know that part for real.
This success of the Bills, like Sean McDermott likes to say, there's a lot baked in to what has grown the success of this offense, not all any one thing. And it will be interesting to see how much of it is Daboll if he leaves. But you said it, he's a good play caller. Whether or not that translates to being a good head coach, it's such a crapshoot. Really good play callers don't make good head coaches all the time. Then some do. Like, it just, you don't know if they're like Sean McDermott and pick up all the little nuances along the way and keep their notes in their books and all that stuff, they're probably going to be pretty good at it. He's had a lot of good tutelage along the way. I mean, he's coached the best ever to coach football in both Saban and Belichick. So he's got the sort of coaching tree, and now under a young, good head coach in Sean McDermott, even some of what Leslie Frazier has to teach these guys. So there's definitely a foundation there to think that he'll do a good job at it. We won't know until he gets a shot. There's been so many coaches I thought were going to be good that we're done in 2-3 years.
Yeah, if you're telling me he goes to Los Angeles with Justin Herbert or Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, I'm not going to be excited. I'm not going to be looking forward to that taking place. So we'll see where that goes. And all the other things, I know, we're going to have a lot of options. We're going to have in-house options like Ken Dorsey. They're going to have chances to do the passing game coordinator, running game coordinator thing. They're going to have all kinds of options. So the Bills are not going to be short for candidates. And I do think it's likely we're going to have to replace Brian Daboll, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We have him for right now and for this entire amazing
we'll deal with
run.
that after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, lots of time. So our next factor, let's get into some of the things that were going on this week. And one of them that got a lot of rightful attention was something that, people joke a lot about how much the Pro Bowl matters. And I will say the game doesn't matter at all. The Pro Bowl game does not matter. But I do want to be conscious when you get into that room for a Hall of Fame debate, number of Pro Bowls matter. When you get into contract negotiations and what contract you get, hell, the new CBA literally has adjustments that if you make one Pro Bowl on your rookie deal, you get the transition tag. And if you make 2 Pro Bowls on your rookie deal, you get the franchise tag. So Pro Bowls matter. Nominations, making the Pro Bowl matters. I understand that the game is pointless. That doesn't make any difference. But the actual selection to the Pro Bowl very much matters. And contract negotiations, rankings, and perception in the league. And obviously, we're very excited that, very deserving nominations with guys like Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Tremaine Edmonds, Trey White, and our man Andre Roberts, having those 5 making it. But the fact that Jordan Poyer did not make the Pro Bowl, I went on a bit of a rant and got frustrated because it just blew my mind that sometimes you see those safeties rack up crazy tackle numbers, and it's always on a team like the Jets or the Jaguars because you're having to come up and make tackles 7 yards deep. That's not the case with Jordan Poyer. He's by far the tackle leader for all players in the secondary. I pulled up a list of the top 25 tackling players in the NFL. It's 24 linebackers and Jordan Poyer on the list. He also has 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 2 sacks, 5 pass defenses, 7 tackles for a loss. He is a game-changing player, and it's just such a frustrating snub. I'm glad he already got paid. I don't know that it makes a huge difference for him from a financial standpoint because he got his money deservedly. But that one hurt me in that he deserved it, and that probably deserved it over a guy, probably over Tremaine Edmonds, honestly, from a Bills standpoint. And that it's just a shame that I don't get why he doesn't get that recognition.
Yeah, I do think, well, it's tough because he led AFC safeties in
all player votes, which means that the coaches and player side of it, the other 2/3, it's 1/3 players, 1/3 coaches, 1/3 fans, or sorry, maybe 1/3 media, 1/3 coaches, 1/3 fans. It might be media instead of players, but it's 3 sets of 1/3 of the votes, and 1/3 of it for fans. He was the number 1 safety.
Right. And so I'm guessing, I don't know how it broke down with media and coaches. I'm guessing coaches recognize Jordan Poyer's ability. There's no, I mean, definitely the people that have played the Bills, those coaches, you for sure are aware of their safeties. I think league wide, you hear coaches, I listen to the other coaches every week and hear what they say, and they always mention Mike Hyde and Jordan Poyer as a problem to deal with every single week. Some of it's got to be from the media, and I think that is just probably poor evaluation of the safety position and what matters in the safety position. Again, I'm sort of on the side that I'm not big on Pro Bowls. I know I get what you're saying, that it does matter with how a lot of people evaluate things. I think it's a really poor way to evaluate who's a Hall of Famer or not. I don't think that it necessarily is indication of how good that person was in their career, because Jordan Poyer is a great example. There's been a number of guys who have been snubbed throughout their career and maybe didn't get as many as they should have. And with some of the voting, sometimes you get guys that it's just a name recognition thing, and they continue to get in based on name recognition, even though they're having down seasons. You see it every year. Somebody gets in and they're not even playing that well. Tremaine Edmonds might be a guy like that, even though he's picked it up here in the second half. I don't know that Tremaine Edmonds has had a Pro Bowl season. That one seemed odd to me. It's hard to compare to say, hey, Jordan should have got in and not Trey. It's different positions, so there's some of that.
They actually have if you look at the numbers, it almost seems like it's weird. There's only 3 safeties, but there's like 7 linebackers. Some of the numbers are a little weird.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem with the Pro Bowl too. It's hard. A lot of contracts have that built in, where if you make the Pro Bowl, there's more money. I know the NFL pays you. I wouldn't be pissed if, I know like money's tight, I wouldn't be pissed if, as a sort of gesture to what he means to the team, we've heard him talk in the media, that the Bills just paid that out to him and said, hey, you're our Pro Bowl.
They've done that before.
Yeah, you're our guy. You're our Pro Bowler. You got snubbed. We don't think this is right. Yeah. You earned this bonus in your contract that you should have had. I would love to see that. And I just think for him as a player, I think it's more the recognition of your peers and of the league to be able to say that. And I think that's what he's going for. The benefit to Bills fans in this kind of on the line is that chip. Dude, then you guarantee you Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier are using this to their advantage here on this final run for Jordan and his team to rally around him in this, to make a statement that he deserves it. And I see some big time angry Jordan Poyer plays coming up here in the next few weeks of football.
Well, and I think another guy that it's a little bit different, but the structure of the Pro Bowl hurts him in that if you had it as your top 2 X receivers, your top 2 wide receivers, and your top 2 slot receivers, Cole Beasley should have been a Pro Bowl player. Yeah. He was the first player to post online congratulating the other guys when the 5 were announced, meaning that he was watching really close and thought that he might have a chance. And that, if you set it up that way, and it's hard when you're talking about just top receivers, you're going to have the DeAndre Hopkins and the Stephon Diggs of the world. And that's not the Cole Beasley's world to be there. But when you talk about slot receivers, it's Keenan Allen and Cole Beasley. They're the 2 best slot receivers in the NFL. And when you're doing that, he deserved that kind of recognition. You talk about the seasons that both Deion Dawkins and Darrell Williams have had. There are guys who deserve, Micah Hyde deserved that attention. Corey Bojorquez is leading the NFL in punting. All of those different guys, regardless of the degree to which they individually deserve that recognition, those are all chips on the shoulder. You talked about some of the awards earlier. I put out a post that I think they're going to go over. I think they're not going to win Coach of the Year, Executive of the Year, MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Pro Bowl snubs, and they're going to use every single ounce of that to just put more chips on more shoulders, to tell everybody that, look, it doesn't matter how much you do. They don't respect you. It's not enough. You have to keep grinding. You have to keep working. And I absolutely love it. It's exactly what Sean McDermott wants, to keep the most successful, praised, applauded season in Buffalo Bills modern history still humble and hungry. And that's how you do it, is by finding ways to show them that, hey, it's still not enough. It's still not enough. It's still not enough.
I would like to, we'll have to talk offline, because I would like to put a bet on the Ofer thing. I don't think they'll go over. I think they'll win. There's a chance they're 13-3, and I think that one of those guys has to get something for that in the NFL.
They should. It would actually be a genuine chip on the shoulder travesty if they don't. Sure.
Absolutely. No, I get where you're coming from, that building that up, but I will be like, I'm rarely very totally speechless, stunned. If they don't win any of the anything, I will be pretty pissed about it. I'm glad you brought up Beasley though, because right after I saw the votes, I put it out there of who I thought were some of the snubs. I thought Darrell Williams was another guy that probably based on his play should have made it. And I think
another guy that format wise, right tackles never make it. It's always two left tackles all the time.
Exactly. And he's had the season where he probably deserves it. And he should be in contention for that type of comeback player of the year type of award for the type of season. But offensive linemen never get sexy love or any of the love like that. But I put Cole Beasley on my list and people were killing me in my mentions. They're like, Cole Beasley, you're dumb. This is the dumbest thing I've heard about this. And you look at like Wes Welker had better seasons probably once
Maybe
Cole Beasley's done.
Like that 2007 crazy.
Yeah, he had like that. Yeah, he had like a 1,500-yard season, a 1,300-yard season. I don't know if Beasley will get quite there. I think he'll get close. He's already, 9 something?
No, he's easily going to go over 1,000.
Yeah, he'll go over 1,000 and from the slot. And I think you hit it on the head that I think the NFL needs to change. If they want people to take the Pro Bowl seriously, I think they need to change some of how they really give those things out and more layer it like the All Pros do, except more depth, right? Like give it to the actual positions, build it out to positionally, because it is a disservice. I mean, Cole Beasley's been in this league a long time. You heard Mark talk about him. He's been doing it a long time. Dallas did a disservice to him his whole career. They never used him as he should have. And now he's flourishing, and he's not going to get the recognition that he should along with his peers. Is one of the best at what he does in the league. And that's a shame to me. They kind of pass over those guys because there's so many good number one receivers, and they all make it.
Yeah, and our last segment here, we want to talk about our friends over at West Her. If you're looking for a vehicle in the area, 23 dealerships in the New York area that can find you any kind of make or model. When you get time to get down and are ready to get to brass tacks, you got to talk numbers. And my number here is 4. And Josh Allen won his 4th player of the week. It's crazy. It's the most in the NFL. 4 out of 14 weeks with 2 weeks to go. And when you've talked about it before, where we certainly were part of the group kind of tamping down the excitement after that stretch of game 5 through 8, that, hey, come on, the MVP stuff's a little bit crazy. He deserves to be in that talk. I'm fine that Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers are going to be the top 2 and that he's a distinguished 3rd, but he's 3rd. He's genuinely 3rd in the NFL voting. He deserves to be in the top 3. He probably, how people always talk about, oh, it's crazy, Russell Wilson's never got an MVP vote. I kind of think Josh Allen is going to legitimately get an MVP vote, because I don't think that Rodgers or Mahomes are having that kind of runaway, undisputed, unanimous MVP like we've had with Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes the last 2 years, where it was just such an astronomical season, better than everybody else, that they got all the votes. That's not going to happen this year. I think that what you saw in that vote, there was 22 votes there. I think the MVP vote's closer to 50. I think you're going to have 25 votes for Rodgers and 20 votes for Mahomes, that 5 or 10 votes for Josh Allen. And I think it's going to be, he's going to get MVP votes. And that's insane. That's absolutely mind boggling that coming into this year, I think Josh Allen is going to get MVP votes. That's crazy to say out loud.
Yeah. And I think that's where people's expectations should be. It's fun to talk about and chant MVP and getting everybody's mentions that he should be in that conversation in the media. And I do think he should be in the conversation again. Nobody really pulled away with it, like you said, in some crazy way where it's, sounds ludicrous for Bills fans to be in there saying that it's not a homerism for Bills fans that mention him in that breath, but to think that he's going to win it, I think you're going to be disappointed in the end.
Aaron Rodgers' season is special. Aaron Rodgers is having a special season, and that's
he's chasing only like himself in statistical categories, and another MVP season that he had. So it's going to be tough. Even Patrick Mahomes' season's pretty special when you look at his touchdown to turnover ratio. Like, he's having an incredible season, and some of these awards are also based on what you've done in the past in a year like this. If you're going up Mahomes, Rodgers, and Allen, and they're all having good years, it's hard as human beings not to look at Aaron Rodgers and say, well, he's done this for so long, and this is incredible, the way he's doing it at this age, to not put some of that past success also up there with him. But I think the success for Josh Allen is, like you said, if he gets any votes, and I think he will, if he gets any votes, I think that's a huge success for Bills fans, because again, like the conversation we just had with Mark, Nobody saw this type of year he had. I don't think anybody in their mind would say that Josh Allen was going to have any MVP votes in his entire career, let alone 3 years in.
Yeah, anyone who thought that he was ever going to get an MVP vote was a hopeful fan, and that's awesome. It's amazing. I was just looking at it. Aaron Rodgers has 40 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So Josh has 38 with 9 interceptions. It's also awesome, but Aaron Rodgers having a phenomenal season for also an 11-3 team, and that same kind of success. And Mahomes is there with a 12-1 team, and those are the kind of things that are just going to be little tiebreakers for things. If they're going to be the 2 number 1 seeds, the Bills are going to be the number 2 seed. All those different things kind of add together that they deserve to be the top 3. It's awesome that he's in the top 3. I think he finishes 3rd, but I do think he gets MVP votes, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and there might be some scenario where he's able to really pad some stats, and those guys have a couple weeks here.
A not crazy scenario where they struggle, have a weird end of the season, and he goes bananas in a Monday nighter against Belichick and that whole thing. If he has 5 touchdowns, if he goes 375 and 5 touchdowns against Belichick on Monday night, and Mahomes has another 3 interception game, and Rodgers has a weird 1 touchdown, 2 interception game, I'll take back some of that and say that maybe, because then you get into the narrative, and this is a narrative award with media members who are looking for a fun story to vote for, and then all of a sudden you get some momentum. So I think that's a possibility.
And you look at the Bills finishing the season with what would they be at that point? With 1 loss after 10 games or something, winning 9 out of 10. And don't sleep on that. I think that Titans Green Bay game is going to be an ugly game for Green Bay after we saw what the Panthers were able to do in the second half of that game. I don't think they're invincible. So that if you are in the club of, hey, Josh Allen should be the MVP and should win it, I'd watch that game closely and hope that Josh continues the success he's had over the last few weeks, because then that argument opens up a little bit for you. But it's okay to just be happy with the votes, because like you said, Russ has probably, I think by most analysts' opinion, been one of the better quarterbacks in the world for the last few years, and has never even gotten a vote.
Never even got one, and was easily the unanimous favorite for it 6, 7, 8 weeks into the season, and now once again, rightfully, is not going to get any votes. It's crazy how it works. Yeah. So with coming to an end here, and Mark queued it up, it's kind of anticlimactic. I feel really similar to this game as I did to the Denver game, where I keep looking at the matchups and guys that are sitting for the Patriots and the way they've been playing. And I'm more afraid of Belichick than I am Vic Fangio. There's always a weird little pocket of what if he comes up with something really creative that we're not ready for. But I just don't see how they hang with us. I don't see how they cover our players. I don't see how they slow down our offense. And I don't see how this is a close game. I just don't.
So what are you going to predict?
I think it's going to be like 38-17. I think that I think it's going to be closer than that at halftime. I think it might even be like 21-17 at halftime, and then they just pull away in the second half. I don't think they can stay close. I don't think they have the horses. I don't think they can score that many points, and I don't think they can stop the Bills from getting to 30-ish. And I think, just like Eric said, that it's not an accident that we're seeing this, pedal to the metal aggression in ramping up at the right time. I kind of think McDermott wants a statement game against Belichick. I kind of think he does. I think he wants a statement win in Gillette to just fully take the division from their cold, dead hands with a statement game that everyone's watching. And it might be the last regular season game that we see all the starters and everyone there. I think they throw everything at them.
Yeah, I have it at, I think I had 31-17. I have a tough time seeing the Patriots score against this defense, the way this defense is playing now. And that's really, in this matchup, where I'm looking for this team to really pull away is I think this defense is trending in the right way at the right time. The offense is getting all the attention, and rightfully so. But the reason the offense is putting up more points. I don't know that the offense is playing at a crazy different level than they were playing at the beginning of the season. I think the defense is giving them more opportunities. The defense is taking the ball away. They're getting sacks at right times. They're playing good situational defense, and that stuff matters. When you add all that up, you get more possessions for the offense, and all they have to do is play as they were. So I think this defense, they're going to have a tough time with the way their offense is, and that the Bills' run defense is a lot better than the last time we saw the Patriots. I think that it's night and day right now, how this defense is playing as a whole. So I think that's really where it's going to come into play. They're going to labor to move the ball. They'll still put points up because it's the NFL. The shutouts are incredibly rare. It's not like they're not going to get some points. They might get a big special teams play here or there. Like the Patriots are pesky like that. I think the Bills will be able to run away with it. Like it's just kind of the type of game you said, but I won't be shocked if this is a one possession game at the end either. Like the Bills have still struggled with this team and with Bill Belichick. And I think they do want to go out and put it to them. But until they do, I think we have to kind of sort of pump the brakes, and that Belichick is going to throw some of these looks that Mark talked about. Yes, Allen can buy that additional second, but Bill Belichick can also steal back that additional second with some of the looks that he can present. No, Stephon Gilmore is definitely going to hurt that ability, but he's still going to throw some looks out there, and that might be risky and allow Josh Allen to put up a crazy amount of points, or it might just pay off and keep that game just close enough where they can do something. But let's not, I mean, I know this is a different team than we saw last time the Bills played the Patriots, but that game really close and probably should have gone the Patriots' way. We're all being honest with ourselves. Cam Newton had the ball. He was driving. A pretty improbable fumble at the end of that game went our way. And sometimes you need that in a season to have the ball bounce your way a few times. So I think it matters, though, for the Bills to get a statement that they win by more than one possession. I think that matters to fans. I think it matters to the team, because I also think you're right that this, in my opinion, I hope it's the last time we see the starters before the playoffs. So it'd be nice to ride out on a high note of a multiple possession win in enemy territory, get that kind of emotional monkey off your back and say, all right, we've done all we needed to do with all the statements we've needed to make in the regular season. Let's rest up and take our next step that we're looking to take here, which is win a playoff game.
Absolutely. And I think that's the exciting part about this, is they're going to show that earlier season game that was ugly, that they needed a Justin Zimmer fumble to strip Cam Newton as he was going in for potentially the game-winning score, at minimum a game-tying field goal. And this is a different team now, and they're a different team now, and that's why I expect a 21-point victory in what we're going to see. So the final step here is, I'm ready. I'm here for you.
It's cute.
It's Christmas time.
Yeah.
And
cute.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just here to look good for you. I do want to take a moment here, and I'll say something next week for the year. It's been a weird year, and there's been a lot of ugliness in the world. There's been a lot of people who have lost people close to them. There's people struggling with staying home and not seeing people. We've all had to change our lives. This has been awesome to experience with all of you, and it's been a bright spot for me personally to have something to cling to that's been positive and exciting and fun. And all the people that you guys come in and chat with us and watch the show, all the people on Twitter and Facebook and Reddit and YouTube and all the different places that people experience our show and send us nice messages and encourage us to continue to provide content. I just want to say thank you and Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. It really means so much that you guys have dove into everything that we do, and that this kind of experience and this kind of glimmer of hope in a dark time has made a huge difference in my life. And I certainly appreciate all of you very much, and wish all of you a very Merry Christmas, or that you just enjoyed a wonderful Hanukkah, or whatever you experience and celebrate with your family. I wish each of you all the best.
I feel like you should have talked about me a little bit more in there, and about how much I mean to you in your life for Christmas. But I agree. I totally second everything Greg just said there. Christmas is super important to me and my family, and it's been such a weird year. And to have the Bills not only back playing football, but a good season. We've been doing this now for a few years. There's been so many ups and downs, and sludging through that 6-10 season a couple years ago, and some real tough episodes to get through. So not only having our team back and having that to look forward to on Sundays, but it being really good. My neighbor dropped off some cookies earlier today, and when he dropped them off, he's just like, he's an older guy, and he came up to me and he said, "These freaking Bills, man, this is the best thing that's happened to me in 25 years. Like, this is all I've been waiting for. Like, I've never had a happier Christmas." And for people to say that with everything in the world going on and going against us, it does matter. People joke about sports and say, "Oh, it's just dumb sports. It doesn't matter." It matters to a lot of people, and it keeps people's spirits in a certain way. And I never realized it. And as much as sports mattered to me, I never realized it till we were here in this wonky 2020. And another, kind of on top of that, I want to say thank you to you and Eric and all the people at Cover One for pulling me back in. I would have been miserable if I missed out on all the content and all the fans of welcoming me back when I came back, because I would have been miserable if I missed out on this content and this opportunity this year to take place and participate in this, because it's super special. This is a season I'll never forget as long as I'm alive. This has been a real fun, interesting year, wonky year, but a really fun time to be a Bills fan.
Yeah, that's easily my win for the year, was talking you out of retirement. Was begging. And for anybody, I did have to beg a little bit. I did have to send a couple messages.
I always make girls work for it a little bit. You can't just throw it out there, give it away.
No, it's been wonderful to experience this side by side with you, and I wouldn't have wanted to do it with anybody else. So I appreciate everything and be able to.
Girlfriend calling right now.
So just appreciate you guys. Thank you again, as far as saying thank yous, our sponsors with Uncle Jumbo's and West Her, the guys over at T-Shirt University. Again, for whoever left us that lovely review, Molds 0080, make sure you come and find us in the DMs. I'll get this gift card out to you. Just thank you guys so much for Uncle Jumbo's, for West Her, for T-Shirt University. On behalf of Aaron Quinn and Greg Tompsett, you have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.